You're watching memorable entertainment television. MeTV TriState.
Broke the story on local homestead tax credit fiasco. Exposed the Evansville Redevelopment Commission excessive spending habits.
Your community watchdog. CityCountyObserver.com is your online community newspaper dedicated to the progress of Evansville and Vanderburgh County. We're a nonpartisan publication providing insight into political issues and events that shape our community. We are a watchdog for you, the citizen. Check us out online, city-countyobserver.com. That's city-countyobserver.com.
TriState Voices, an open discussion with area leaders on issues affecting communities throughout the Tri-State. Now, here's your host, Mike Woods.
Good morning. Welcome to TriState Voices. TriState Voices is jointly sponsored by the City County Observer, WTSN, and my office, Woods & Woods. I'm your host, Mike Woods. Every week, TriState Voices interviews community leaders concerning issues that are important to this Tri-State. Today will probably be the easiest interview I've ever done because I'm interviewing my old friend, Judge Les Shively. As many of you might remember, Judge Shively and I did an interview show very similar to this one for several years. We interviewed all kinds of different politicians and community leaders. And so he bailed out on me. He took a judgeship, and judges are barred from political activity. So I brought him back today, and so rather than have him abuse me every Tuesday, I get to interview him today. So Judge, good to see you.
Good to see you, Mike. It's great to be back before the camera with you.
All right. Well, we had a lot of fun for a couple of years. I was just thinking back on all the different people we interviewed. It's interesting to watch how everybody's gone. Mayor Winnicky.
Those were fun Tuesday nights.
Yeah, they were. They're fun. I guess the first thing I want to ask you is, you had a law practice that a lot of lawyers were killed for. I mean, really successful. You took a pay cut to take a judgeship. Why would you take a pay cut to take a new job at age, what, 58?
Well, you know, I've always had a yearning for public service. I'd run for public office unsuccessfully in the past. As you noted, I was fortunate to have a good law practice, great clients, and enjoyed what I was doing. But I'd always decided at some point in time in my life I wanted to combine my zeal for public service with the law. And the opportunity presented itself, and I thought this was a good time in my career to do that.
That'd be exciting for you. And for those of you who don't know what happened, Judge Kiley was a Superior Court judge. He got elected to Circuit Court. And that left an opening, and Judge Pence made a real good choice and picked Les Shively to be the new Superior Court judge.
Actually, that's not correct. It was Governor Daniels.
That's right, it was Daniels.
Really interesting, a little interesting. I know we're out of politics, but this is a little historical.
You'll never be out of politics.
The governor remains the governor, even though we had in 2012 we had a gubernatorial election. The governor, David Daniels, remains governor until I think it's the second Tuesday in January, which I think roughly was the 14th of January, 2013. And Governor Daniels made it very clear any openings up till that point in time he was going to fill. I don't know why, but he was very clear about that. And so actually the appointment was made by Governor Daniels literally on his way out the door. So,
well, you had to be happy about it, though.
I was very happy. It was an exciting day, and yeah. The funny thing, I got a call from the governor's one of the governor's staff people telling me the governor was going to appoint me, and the announcement would be made the next day. And I asked him, what is the protocol? How do I assume the office? When do I take office? How long do I have? And the young man said, well, you'll work it out. Good luck. And you could definitely tell this was administration. You could hear the moving vans, the engines in the background. I mean, they were clearly, that was one of the last things.
Headed off to Lafayette.
They were headed off to Lafayette, that's right. There's some school up there he's working for now.
That's funny. That had to be kind of scary for you, though, after 30 years in private practice, and then you're giving up your private practice. You're going to take this job, you're appointed for 2 years, but then you have to run for election for 6 years. So you could have put yourself in a spot where you're taking a job that, until you do it, you don't know if you really like it or not. And then after 2 years, it possibly could lose the election. Now you don't have the judgeship and you don't have your private practice.
You got to have faith, man. You just got to have faith. You got to believe that what you're doing is right, that things happen for a reason. Actually, less than 2 years, because I got the call on January 10th of 2013. And the law says if you're appointed to fill a judicial vacancy, you must run in the next general election, which is November 4th, 14, so it's less than 2 years. You know, my wife and I had talked about it, and we sort of locked arms and jumped off that bridge together and hoped for the best, and so far it's worked out all right.
Well, it must have worked out pretty good, because what happened was nobody filed against Judge Shively. So if he even gets one vote this November, he wins, because it's too late for anybody to file against you, right?
Right, and a lot of people don't understand in Vanderburgh County and Allen County, only 2 counties that operate this way. Judicial candidates run nonpartisan. And so in my situation, it's a whole different world. You have to sort of transition into becoming a candidate that's not affiliated with a party. You're clearly, by law, independent, nonpartisan. And it is a totally different process. But usually, especially the newest judge that's been appointed, usually faces competition. I was fortunate.
Well, fortunate would be one word, but some people would say you earn it. You know, the fact of it is, and I'm trying to pay you a compliment, but to be blunt about it, if people didn't like you, there would have been opposition, you would have an opponent. There's a lot of people like to be a judge, and if somebody thought they could beat you, they would have ran against you.
Maybe that's the advantage of having less than 2 years. I haven't done enough harm yet.
Well, I've seen other guys do it, so I wouldn't say it. But you had to take that as a really, that's the best compliment a judge could get,
well,
is nobody files against you.
It's very.
It had to make you feel good.
Very humbling. Very humbling.
It had to make you feel good. And you should. Yeah. I mean, that's about the nicest compliment somebody in public office can get, really.
Right.
Because if there'd been an army of lawyers mad at you, there'd been somebody who would have taken you on. So.
Right.
So here we go. How did you shut down your private practice? I mean,
well, I'm still in the process. I'm still in the process of doing it.
Well, it sounds like complicated, because I've had clients I've had for years and years and years. And how do you call them up and say, "I'm sorry, I can't be your lawyer anymore, and here's where your case is going"?
Right. Well, one of the first things I did after I got the call from the governor was meet with Judge Trockman, as chief judge, and I said, "How soon do you need me to start?" He says, "Tomorrow." And I said, "Well, that's not possible." So we set March 1st as the deadline. I was very fortunate. A law firm here in town assisted me at the transition. We sent the letter out to all existing clients, former clients, whatever, regarding their files, telling them that I've been appointed to the bench, that I was leaving the practice of law, and that this firm would have their files. If they wanted that firm to keep their file, they could. If they wanted to go someplace else, we'd make those arrangements. And again, knock on wood, it has worked pretty well. It worked pretty well. I really want to, Mark Fine and his crew were extremely helpful making that transition. And so that without their assistance, it would have been impossible to be ready to go by March 1, because I was a sole practitioner. And in fact, my court reporter, who is my former secretary, I had 2 sports staff people. I had her go over in February so she could get acclimated, so I could hit the streets running after taking office on March 1. And I only had 1 support staff person trying to wind things up, take care of clients' business. That was the most difficult, one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. I mean, it really is something that I truly did not estimate how stressful and time-consuming that would be. And to this day, I'm still working out some loose ends, not major, but even this time last year, still working through the transition with clients.
You know, I don't think most people realize how attached lawyers get to their clients and how much you care about them, you worry about them. I mean, they almost become like your kids. And that had to be weird in some ways, walking away from those cases, because you've put all this emotional energy.
Right.
You know, it becomes your case at a certain point.
The interesting thing was I had 2 pretty high-profile cases going on at the time, both before the Indiana Supreme Court. One involving Evansville smoking ordinance. I was representing the not-for-profits, and then started representing the bars and taverns as well. And I also had the challenge of the Boonville annexation. Well, I had to turn those over to co-counsel to finish out, but I went up to see the oral arguments on both cases, and my clients prevailed. Now, maybe that's a signal, because my record wasn't really that good with the Supreme Court when I was in private practice. Maybe it was telling me something, that this is time for the transition. But the thing that was really rewarding was my clients, you know, we celebrated those wins. They were very appreciative. It was nice to see that happen.
You know, a minute ago you talked about how Vandenberg County is one of only 2 counties that have nonpartisan elections. And so pretty much anybody that's a lawyer can go down there and file.
Right.
And we had interesting deal like a few years ago when Judge Lloyd was first elected. I think there were 8 different people filed in that thing.
Right.
And I'm not sure anybody could really predict very well who was going to win that. You know, you got 8 candidates, and so somebody could win with 15, 18% of the vote or something. So that's kind of makes a wild card if somebody's running.
Yeah, it does, except I think the bar poll, you know, people, generally speaking, if you interview folks, they don't like lawyers, don't trust lawyers, all that stuff. However, the anomaly is voters in these judicial elections really put a lot of weight on that bar poll.
Yeah.
And I think that what makes the difference, that what separates the candidates, and I think the voters really take that to heart.
Oh, I think almost every time whoever wins the bar poll wins the election.
Right.
I'm not sure I know an exception. There might be, but I'm not sure I know an exception to that. That's usually the way that works out. So, how is a normal day of a judge? I mean, you get up in the morning.
There's no wait.
And what's your normal day?
There is no such thing as a normal day. No 2 days are alike. That's one thing I love about this job. You know, first of all, in answering that question, maybe we give folks a little bit of background of how the Vandenberg Superior Court is set up. We have 7 judges in the Vandenberg Superior Court. Judge Niemeyer does nothing but juvenile and probate. He does not rotate. He does not do anything else besides juvenile, and does a tremendous job. That's always been a passion of his since Judge Niemeyer was a deputy prosecutor. Now that leaves 6 of us. Judge Trockman and Judge Pigman are the primary criminal court judges. Judge Pigman handles all the felony cases except for D-felony cases. Judge Trockman does all the D-felony, the lower level felony cases. I guess there's no such thing as D-felony now. There's 5 and 6, I guess, and runs his drug court, which again is a evidence-based program that is communities throughout the state are emulating or attempting to adopt. Then that leaves 4 of us. The other 4 of us, we rotate each from civil to domestic relations. Domestic relations involves divorce cases, juvenile paternity cases, the post-divorce, the post-juvenile paternity issues like issues on support, custody, visitation, things of that nature. That was a system went into play September of 2012. We've modified that slightly because in 2013, Judge Pigman alone tried close to 40 jury trials. He and his staff can't continue on that pace. And so the 4 of us that rotate in the civil and domestic, now 3 times a year, we back up the criminal judges in our caseload. And we'll either take a case or we'll do the arraignments and such in the morning or the afternoon, or the particular criminal judge's block. So to answer your question, because of that, my day could involve a domestic case, could involve a personal protective orders. We get all the judges after these personal protective orders, which have taken away a lot of the court's time, or a criminal matter, or a civil case. And you never know what's on. I mean, you see things on your docket, but at the end of the day, you look back what was on your docket, what you actually did that day. It was like this morning. I already got 2 emails for our court administrator that someone needs to cover this, cover that, and so my day's changed already. So to answer your question, that's why we get up early and get to the office early to find out what's going to take place.
Well, that's had to be interesting for you because, like me, I haven't done a criminal case since I left the prosecutor's office 30 years ago. And the same, you didn't do any criminal in your private practice. So it had to be a big change come there and basically relearn the criminal law.
But you know,
we got out of law school a few weeks ago. It's
right. Well, but that's what keeps it exciting. You know, this is an area of law I didn't practice in, so it's like going back to school. And I had so many willing colleagues on the bench, as well as people in the prosecutor's office, public defender's office, very helpful in getting me up to speed. A little work on my own. This new criminal code that came into play gave me the opportunity to go to several seminars to learn the substantive criminal law area and the procedural aspects, as well as sentencing issues. So that's been kind of exciting. Criminal cases are tried so much differently than civil cases that you and I are used to trying. But it's just one of those type of opportunities that it's presented to you. Just get in there and do it. The Judicial Center in the state is fantastic. They provide so much data that allows judges to do their job. And with those materials and the assistance of my colleagues, it was relatively easy to make that transition.
When I started practicing law, all the judges except for judge in juvenile court rotated. And I guess one of the theories behind the rotation system, if you went from divorce to criminal to civil,
right,
you'd never get burned out. It's like in divorce
right,
court, you're not going to be in there more than twice a year. You know,
right,
6 judges divided by 12, so you're going to be in there maybe January and then get in July. It seems like with the current system, you got some judges that are going to be in certain courts, and they're going to be there all the time. Are they worried about those people after a while getting burned out, or can they switch out of that court if they want?
Well, that's a good question.
Because, you know, I'd be stuck in divorce court. I think it'd wear you out.
I want to talk about that and address that specific issue. I think family law is one of the most important things that judges do. The problem is with the family, what ultimately leads to young people getting involved in criminal matters as juveniles, and unfortunately it leads to things that they do as an adult that gets them involved in the criminal justice system. I think some of the most serious work we do, important work we do, is in the family law area. And I had that orientation. And fortunately, we have some really good practitioners in family law that really, I know you can't technically specialize, but that's the focus of their practice. They do a tremendous job. We have the assistance of guardian ad litems, et cetera. I find it very stimulating and exciting. And because I feel like you're playing a role in a small way of maybe making the future a little bit better. So I'm not burned out yet. In fact, I even take some of my family law cases and even to move cases along, put them in try them if I can, in the months that I'm not in the domestic relations division.
You used a term, I think a lot of people like to know what you mean by that. What's a guardian ad litem?
Yeah, I should define those. The guardian ad litems are individuals that assist the court in cases where there's an issue concerning custody, parenting time. One of the things I learned as I took the bench was we don't say visitation anymore, it's parenting time. We even have Indiana parenting time guidelines along with support guidelines. But the guardian ad litem is a person who interviews the players, parents, children, step-parents, whoever's involved with the children. And then they give a report to the court. And it remains confidential, although the attorneys are given copies. They're allowed to discuss it with their clients, but not to any third parties. And it really gives the court some guidance, because the reality of it is, I don't care how much time you give to these cases, in a courtroom setting, you really cannot absorb all of the nuances that are going on in these people's lives. The guardian ad litems are trained, they can give you that data, and they really assist the court in making better decisions. I use guardian ad litems all the time.
You clearly like your current job, but then you enjoyed practicing law. Are you glad you made the change?
At this point in time in my life, yeah. I mean,
you're not facing an election now either.
We're not facing an election now either. But, you know, I really had this, not to be repetitive, but this burning desire at some point in my career to do something in public service, to give something back to the community. It's been really good to me, and yet keep my hand in the law and be able to provide for my family. This was a great opportunity. I missed duking it out. I missed the back and forth, the interplay, the win-loss, the exhilaration of winning a case. There's nothing to replace that. You don't get that anymore.
Yeah. You have to bite your tongue sometimes, I would think now.
Well,
so they didn't have you and I do that show for years because we were quiet.
But let me tell you something. A lot fewer times than you think. We got a good bar. We got some very able lawyers. One of the things I enjoy about the criminal work that I'm involved in is I get to work with young deputy prosecutors, get to work with young public defenders. We don't only have a good, mature bar, if you will. We got some sharp up-and-comers, so to answer your question, very few times do I ever have to bite my tongue. I find most of the lawyers up here in my court are prepared. They do an excellent job, and I'm not just saying that. You don't have an opponent, so I'm not here garnering. I'm just really making at least my honest assessment of what I observe from my position.
Yeah, but you'd have to where you're sitting there thinking, gosh, if I were that lawyer, I'd ask this question, or I'd ask this, or why did you make that argument, or not follow that motion?
Well, and I have to
because we second guess ourselves.
I have to say that there are times when I do ask questions. And they always, at judges school, by the way, all new judges are required within the first 2 years of taking the bench to go to an intense week-long judges school, which is fantastic. In fact, the best continuing education program I ever attended in my life. But one of the things they said, be very, very careful in asking those questions so you don't assert yourself into the adversarial process. You are to call balls and strikes, as they said. But sometimes, especially in a family law situation, family law cases, this is not Old National Bank versus Smith and Jones. You're talking about children. You're talking about their lives. And sometimes, at least this judge, feels that maybe that one other question would maybe open things up, and not that I may not even know the answer, but something I think really is important for me to know that no one else has asked. So I started making an exception to that rule about asking questions in those kinds of cases.
Earlier you were talking about the structure of the court, and I want to ask you, how many different magistrates do they have?
Well, that's a good question. See if I can count them all.
Yeah.
Let's see. Magistrate Markram, Shoulders, Corcoran,
what's the
five,
difference?
6? Yeah.
One that, I get emails sent to me when they say who we're going to interview, and some of them ask the question, what's the difference between a magistrate and a judge? Do they really have a different role?
Magistrates are not really. The magistrates are an extension of the sitting judges. Sitting judges have to sign off on every order or judgment rendered by a magistrate. But the magistrates do the same things that judges do. Magistrate Fink, for example, in the circuit court, tries quite a few criminal cases. They do everything they do except they're employees of the court. They're not elected by the people. They serve at the pleasure of the court.
So the judges could fire him if they want.
Correct.
But the voters have to fire you guys.
That's right. Voters have to fire us. Again, we're very fortunate to have some really good magistrates, and our system is very dependent upon magistrates, especially misdemeanor courts. High-volume courts, misdemeanor, small claims. Without the magistrates, those courts cannot work as well for the people as they do.
Earlier you mentioned that there's a new criminal code.
Yes.
When I interviewed the two sheriff's candidates a few weeks ago, both of them talked extensively. One of the big issues facing the sheriff is the overcrowding in the jail. The jail capacity, as you know, is about 512 people. Right. And they're at capacity all the time. Now, as I understand the new criminal code on some of the low-level felonies, they're not going to go off to the Indiana Department of Corrections. They're going to stay here. Is that right? That's correct. And let me emphasize this. This is a big, huge issue. The law, as I read the law and the commentaries, effective this time next year, if a sentence, you hand down a sentence, let's say, for example, you sentence them to 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, but once it's all netted out with credit time, whatever, it's going to result in them actually serving a year or less. They cannot go to DOC. I cannot send the Department of Corrections, the penitentiaries, if you will, to the lay public. They have to do their time here. And that is going to put pressure on our jail. It's going to put pressure on our community corrections program. It's going to be an incentive to further expand courts like the drug court, to work with non-violent offenders, to try to turn their lives around. And by the way, statistics have shown you have a better chance of doing that if they remain in the locale. But still, that costs money. And then one of the things that I've not seen, and no one can really answer this question, they say, well, we're doing this because we'll save money for the operation of the Department of Corrections. And that money will come back in the community. Well, no one has shown me that formula. So it's going to come back to the community. How? But one of the things that will help is in the law that every county is going to have to develop a community corrections plan that is interfaced with and approved by the local probation people and certified by the appropriate authorities at the state level. We have to 2017 to do that. I think it's incumbent upon Vanderbilt County to get that done ASAP, because I think incumbent with that will be the opportunity to free up
dollars, sources of grants and such to help operate our facilities here, because we got a major, it's not going to hit us overnight. The new law went into effect July 1. You're not going to see it for several months because again, it'll take a while before it all filters through the system. But I would say this time next year, we're going to see the effects.
It's really interesting because the current Vanderbilt County Sheriff, Dave Wedding, and the person running against him for sheriff, the Republican candidate, Kirk Byram, I talked to both of them extensively about the new criminal code and how many people are going to be staying here. And the state's not giving them any statistics. They don't know if they're going to have an additional 25, 50, 100. They really don't know, but somehow they're going to deal with that. And like I said, they're at capacity. And to say both of them are kind of freaked out is the understatement. I don't mean to speak for them, but both of them were obviously worried about it.
And this is something where law enforcement and the judges and all the people, the players in the criminal justice system are going to have to communicate continuously. This is a moving target. We're going to have to keep our members of the General Assembly alert and involved, and because really no one knows what the impact is going to be and how quickly we'll see that impact. So, and one thing I was about Vanderbilt County that's very strong and why I think we'll be able to get over this is those communication lines are there. We're talking every day. We're exchanging data on jail population, things of that nature. We'll get through this, but no one knows where it's going to end up.
You know, one place I don't think it's going to end up is by expanding the jail. I don't see any money in the county budget to expand the jail. And when you talk to everybody on the county commission, the county council, and all the rest of that, none of them have any intention of expanding the jail. That's not in the cards.
And here's the concept that I think this is not a Republican-Democrat issue. The state is very fiscally sound. Why is that? Well, because a lot of the mandates have been passed down to local government with no funding directly tied to those additional responsibilities. If we're going to have a statewide criminal code, a statewide sentencing system, statewide parameters, etc., the state's going to have to step up to the plate and say, we're going to fund this system. Justice cannot be based upon what the fiscal state of each one of the 92 counties. We don't have 92 systems of justice. We have one state, one criminal code, and we need to make sure that the state provides the funds so that things operate uniformly regardless of whether a crime is committed in Vanderbilt County, Pike County, whatever. We're far from being there right now, and I think we need to think statewide as opposed to every community having to struggle.
You know, that's one of the criticisms of the death penalty, because some counties are quite simply too poor to afford to put somebody to death. It's really expensive.
Exactly. Look what happened to Floyd County. Floyd County, the third time they tried the Cam case, was the final bill over $4 million. They tell me, I'm talking to a judge from there last year, a lot of their roads in Floyd County were not paved, repaired in that fiscal year because of the obligation they had for that trial. You know, should Floyd County bear the burden for a statewide criminal code or a judicial system or criminal law system? I think not.
Yeah. Well, it's been great talking to you. I can't believe we're out of time already. We're gone. So, Judge, it's been a real pleasure. Look forward to seeing you again. Next week, we're going to have Cheryl Musgrave. Cheryl has been involved in political affairs for many, many years, and her political career, I don't think, is over. And perhaps next week she'll kind of give us some insight about what she's planning on doing. Thank you very much. We'll see you then.
This year in the Tri-State, 1 out of 8 people will be in an accident.
Would you know what to do?
Pain and suffering, lost time if you're working.
When you call Woods & Woods, you are not a statistic. You are our client, and we will fight to get the money you deserve.
If you're in an accident, call Woods & Woods if you want justice.
If you've been injured, call 1-800-544-2108.
Let Woods and Woods work for you. You don't owe us a dime unless we win your case.
You're watching memorable entertainment television. MeTV TriState.